Cool, thank you very much. So, a very select few of you, thank you very much for coming back into the room for what will be the most interesting session for you this afternoon. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to make you excited about data. Yeah! There we go, at least I get a laugh. Okay, so how many people who are here in the room know what Hadoop is? Fantastic, you get a prize. Okay, how many people in here have heard the word Hadoop and don't know what it is? Good, that's better. Okay, so in the next 19 and a half minutes, as I have a total of 20, I'm going to explain to you what Hadoop is. I'm going to explain to you why you should probably think about using Hadoop. I'm going to show you some examples of how people are using Hadoop. And I'm going to explain to you how you can get started with Hadoop. Wow, in 20 minutes for free. The guys out there don't know what they're missing. Okay, so, whoa, this is over to the right. Okay, I'll have to explain the content of some of my slides because I fear that most of them will be over here. So Gartner in May did some research on how are people using Hadoop, or what do they think about Hadoop. And they came up with this statistic here, with 55% of organizations have no plans to use Hadoop. Wow. And there were lots of headlines. Bleak outlook for Hadoop. Goodness me. So why on earth would a company like Hortonworks decide to have an IPO and go on the NASDAQ if nobody's using it? So it depends how you look at this market. The glass can be half empty, the glass can be half full. If you look at the same pie chart again, in fact, over 1/4 of organizations are already using Hadoop. That's phenomenally quick adoption for a new technology. And then another 18% are going to start using Hadoop within the next 2 years. So within 2 years, nearly half of all enterprises will be using Hadoop. That's fairly pervasive and very quick. So in fact, I'm very much a glass is half full, because going back to Franz's session earlier this morning when he was talking about generation 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're definitely at this generation 4 point, and what we're heading towards here is a tipping point, an inflection point around the whole philosophy of data management within the enterprise. There's a paradigm shift going on, and Hadoop is at the very center. So I will explain some of the numbers that aren't on this slide, as well as those that are. A little bit about who we are, so you understand some context as to who this crazy man is talking to you. So, us Hortonworks, we're a US-led software company. We floated on the NASDAQ in December, as I mentioned. We're about 750 people globally. We have over 550 customers now around the world. At least that's correct to the end of June. And that number is growing by over 100 customers every quarter. And all of those organizations very much, I would say an overwhelming majority, so 90+%, are the large enterprise and the largest organizations in the world. This is very much the future of data. And this is how we draw the future of data with Hadoop, the modern data architecture. This is how we, not the same as everybody in the Hadoop world, but this is how we see Hadoop playing within any organization in the future. And it also explains why Hortonworks was born as an organization. So if I go back a slide, in fact, these very happy fellows in the background are all engineers who were at Yahoo. And they created Hadoop at Yahoo to index the internet. That was the original purpose of Hadoop. So they took all of the internet, stuck it in a massive distributed database so that they could index it, so they could do searches. That was the original purpose of Hadoop. And they looked at what they built around Hadoop and they said, well, this is actually a very powerful platform. This ability to move the process from moving data around an organization to process it in the application to actually sending the requirements for compute down to where the data sits in a distributed database. So you're not moving the data, you're being much more efficient across very large data sets because you can't take enormous data sets and just move them around very easily. They said, well, what if we took this indexing engine and we made it something that was more broadly applicable and useful to an enterprise? And so the concept of yarn was born, this blue line in the middle here. And what yarn is an abstraction layer within Hadoop that essentially acts like an operating system for data. So it sits on top of this distributed file system that's the building block of Hadoop, and it allows you to do lots of different things in parallel on that same cluster of data or across that cluster of compute. And it allows you to integrate in third-party applications and integrate to existing data warehouses, existing MPPs, and all the other existing data investments that you will normally have in an enterprise. So what we're saying is that Hadoop is not the future of a homogeneous data environment. We're saying that Hadoop sits and extends and augments next to your existing data investments. It optimizes their performance, and it allows you to offload data into a cheaper storage environment from those data warehouses, for example. So that's the basic premise here. So it's not all about innovation. It's actually, a lot of it's about common sense and cost optimization. There's one missing off the side here. I don't know whether we can do anything about the slide formatting at all. Possibly? No? Okay. So you have to trust me that the little bit there is really cool as well. Okay, so cost optimization is probably where a majority of our customers start. So people think about big data, and they think about the really cool stuff, the mobile stuff, sensor data, Internet of Things, all of the really sexy things that you see in the news around big data. The reality is that actually the first step most people start on is sticking a Hadoop cluster on the side of a data warehouse and just moving data into that environment. And the reason that makes sense can be one of several things. Firstly, you can take ETL load out of your data warehouse. It's not sexy, sure, but it optimizes and makes the performance of that existing data warehouse better, and it can push out the need for you to buy an additional appliance. You can archive old data very easily from the data warehouse into Hadoop. That means you can store more history. So rather than deleting everything when it gets to 90 days, keep it forever in cheap commodity storage across a distributed environment. So we have integration points, going back a couple of slides, we have integration points and partnerships and alliances with many of the existing incumbent data warehouse vendors like Teradata, like SAP, like Microsoft, because we augment and extend what they already do and allow customers to evolve their data architecture into this brave new world. But of course, there is the sexy stuff too. Internet of Things, woo! So this is where Hadoop then becomes really valuable. So first of all, you do the offload, you save yourself some money. Classically, that then pays for the investment in the stuff that opens up new revenue lines. That's what these new data opportunities are all about. It's about exploring and enriching through new revenue streams and new routes to market. And ultimately, the vision we have is that organizations end up with a data lake, which may be something some of you have heard of, maybe not. The data lake is this idea that because you can integrate with all of your different systems, and you have Hadoop in a single large cluster on the side, you're able to put all of your data from across all of those different data silos that you've had in the business across your different divisions. You can put them into the same place. And this drives a lot of efficiency for your business. It means that you have a centralized security system. So you're able to very, very closely and tightly control access to the data and governance of the data in that system. It makes it much more operationally efficient because you're only going to have the compute resources deployed that you actually need across that whole estate. You don't need to have surplus. And of course, it breaks down the walls of silos in that data so that you can run analysis across what were separate data sets in one place. And you can gain then insight in ways that you couldn't in the old world. So, an example of a customer that's doing this, British Airways, and they followed exactly this path. So they started with offloading all the data from legal cases that they had on their data warehouse, and they just threw it into Hadoop. And the savings that they made on that within the first 12 months have allowed them to invest in the really cool stuff, in the customer 360-degree view kind of stuff, where they're bringing in and ingesting data now from all different sources to allow them to have a much richer view of their customers as individuals and personalize the marketing and content that they're delivering to thus improve the revenue stream. Jaguar Land Rover. So automotive is obviously been in the news for a lot of bad reasons in the last week or two. But more commonly, over the last few months, you'll have probably seen a lot of stories around smart cars and intelligent cars and that kind of thing. It's exactly the kind of use case that Hadoop was built for. Because what you can do with Hadoop is stream massive volumes of data from sensors across vehicles and devices and other sources into this single pool of data. And you're able to then analyze that data and set triggers so that you can understand, for example, when parts might be giving you indications that they're going to fail ahead of time. So you can call in vehicles and say, we think that your vehicle needs its brakes testing. Please bring it to the garage and we'll fix that for you. And it avoids a potentially much more serious situation. So we have car manufacturers, helicopter manufacturers, aerospace organizations doing exactly that with Hadoop. And where that's moving toward, that's almost the old way of doing things now. That's how a lot of people are already using Hadoop. How it gets even more interesting with intelligent cars is something called Apache NiFi that we've started working with more recently that allows bidirectional communication then to those sensors. So you'll start to see more responsive smart cars, if you like. Right now, a lot of the data is just taken from these sensors and put into Hadoop. In the future, you'll start to see much more interactivity going back up to the devices and the vehicles and that kind of thing as well. And then finally, Zurich. Now, you may have noticed, in fact, all three of the customers that I've referred to, very deliberately, hello, it's going all over the place now. Ooh. Keep up, there we are. Okay, all three of these organizations are not Googles, they're not Yahoos, they're not eBays. These are traditional enterprise organizations because Hadoop presents value for traditional enterprise organizations. Immediate value in offloading from EDWs. And that's exactly what Zurich are doing. So again, their endpoint, their view is they want to get to rich 360-degree view of their customers, but they're starting with offloads. They're building a modern data architecture. They're embracing this paradigm shift because they recognize that actually it makes them more cost efficient very quickly, and that is a competitive advantage. You don't have to do something innovative to have competitive advantage. If you're preserving budget by being efficient, you can put that resource into something that gives you an edge over your competition. So, to reiterate, I didn't actually mention this before. Everything we do, software-wise, is free. I should have said it at the start. So we're a bit like Red Hat, but we're even arguably freer than Red Hat. So all of our engineering goes upstream into Apache projects, including Apache Hadoop. And our product, the Hortonworks data platform, is completely Apache licensed. It's completely free. There is no freemium model. There's no enterprise version. It's just what it is. It's out there and it's free. We are the leading mindshare within Apache Hadoop, so we've got around a third of the upstream engineering committers into the Hadoop project. Yahoo, where we were originally spun out from, have the second largest chunk, so we're leading and defining the architecture of this paradigm shift in business. And like Red Hat, you may have seen what we call an asparagus chart like this from Red Hat as well. We take point releases of 20-something projects, because there are some off the right-hand side here that are missing, and we wrap those together into this single product so that you don't have to roll your own distribution of Hadoop in the same way that you wouldn't roll your own distribution of Linux. Yeah? So that's what we do. We take those point releases, make an enterprise product, and we provide that out to the market. So how do you make money from free software? We're doing all of this stuff. How do we, as Hortonworks, actually have a business? Support, of course. So it's a subscription model similar to Red Hat. It's an annual subscription model. Because the software is Apache licensed, there's no obligation to take this support. So it's completely free. You don't have to take the support, and if you do, we're obviously the best people to provide that support. And we have proactive systems called SmartSense that allow us to, we're eating our own dog food in essence. We're able to read the metadata out of your clusters, if you so choose to allow us, such that we can then proactively provide support, advice, and guidance on how you're using your cluster and considerations you might want to make around configuration and changes. So there's obviously a few organizations in the world of Hadoop. Some of you may have heard of some of our competitors. One of the things that we are keen to drive is the idea of the open data platform. This is an initiative we started earlier in the year. And as Hadoop becomes more common, you will hear the open data platform mentioned more often probably as well. So the open data platform, philosophically, has the intention to put a common base standard of Apache Hadoop across multiple commercial distributions of Hadoop products. So it's ourselves, it's IBM, and it's Pivotal, all of whom have Hadoop products, but across all three organizations we have the same version of Apache Hadoop and the same version of Apache Ambari, which is the management framework for Hadoop, in those technologies. So what this means from a customer perspective is that you have increased freedom. So yes, our software is free as in beer, but if for some reason you choose to, if you don't like Hortonworks after a year, you can easily move your data into another technology, and it's the same format. The data is in the same, it's structured in the same way, so the transfer is much more, with less barriers, shall we say. So this is the idea of freedom for the customer. And that's why there's a whole bunch of organizations that have embraced this and are working with us on the Open Data Platform. And then we have the Data Governance Initiative, because many of the customers we work with, Zurich's a good example, work in highly regulated industries. So security and governance of data is very, very important. It's a shame some of this text is missing here. So again, around the same time that we launched the Open Data Platform earlier this year, we also launched the Data Governance Initiative. So big data technologies have sometimes a reputation for being risky for a business. And many of our customers are investment banks, retail banks, government institutions, insurers, retailers, for whom data governance and security is very, very important. So we have robust security. We acquired a Hadoop security company last year and open sourced their technology to make Apache Ranger. What we've done now, though, in collaboration with SAS, SAP, JP Morgan, Aetna, Target, a bunch of organizations, we've all put developers together and created a new project called Apache Atlas, which we've just put into the latest release of our technology, of the Hortonworks Data Platform. And Apache Atlas is a standardized governance framework for controlling your data in a big data environment, built in such a way that it integrates with existing governance frameworks and tool sets provided by other vendors, so that from a customer perspective, you can have a single centralized control across governance across your data estate. So this is again going back to that view of Hadoop not as the only data technology that you use, but augmenting and extending what you already do in a way that's safe. So this was the Forrester wave of Hadoop from last year. It's evolved a little bit, but the interesting thing, so we as Hortonworks try and be the center of gravity for Hadoop. Hopefully I've made that fairly clear. If you look at this chart here, there's a couple of organizations in there. Pivotal, we have an alliance with around their Hadoop technology now. Teradata, you can buy Hadoop from Teradata to run their appliance or to run on the side of their appliances. That's actually Hortonworks, you can buy from them. So that's what they're doing there. Microsoft Hadoop is a technology called HD Insight that you can spin up on Azure. And that's, in fact, the Hortonworks Data Platform, actually badged under a Microsoft badge. So we actually have several positions within this same chart. It's very, very interesting evolution in the space. Now, the final part, to get started with Hadoop, it's really, really easy. The sandbox. So you can go to our website. The software itself is free anyway, but we put together a sandbox, which is a VM with the Hortonworks Data Platform, sample data sets, and there's tutorials you can walk through on our website that will give you all of the basics you need to know to understand how to get started with Hadoop. There's some complexity to it, don't get me wrong, but getting started is actually quite simple. So, cautionary statement. Any forward-looking statements I may have, blah, 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 blah. And that is me done. Now, before you clap, are you excited about data? Yes. Thank you. There we go.